Look at that picture in the background.
Yeah, it's you and me, right? So the first part, I'm gonna ask some questions. So we HR professionals in Japan want to broaden our perspective and learn from other countries like the US. A pioneer in HRM, what is the latest workforce trend in the US?
Well, that's a very good question because we are currently experiencing several challenges to workforces today, and largely a function of two trends, I can say. One is the explosion of technology in managing workforces, and the other is responding to the COVID crisis. So let me take on the technology question. Because we have distributed workforces now, where the place where people are and where they work, it can be anywhere, and mostly at home for knowledge workers, the role of technology has been key to keeping employees productive and connected to their workplaces. So the kind of AI that is really coming to the forefront is AI which creates communication platforms like this one, Zoom, and many others, but it is the proliferation of different forms of communication and different ways of interacting that is becoming more important, a more central role in the way people work and communicate with each other. But it's happening so fast, it's entirely possible that we can't keep up with it. And an example of that is a company that just created a virtual reality simulation of a building full of rooms that people can create their own avatars and meet in those rooms and actually start feeling like they are in the room talking to each other, because they can turn their head, they can nod, they can speak to each other, they can look at a presentation on a wall, and pretty soon you become lost in that virtual reality. But the company that created that software will not communicate with anybody unless they download their platform and meet in one of their rooms. So the question is going to be, will companies adopt this and have that as the preferred method of meeting together and conversing together, and therefore requiring every employee to download this very expensive, in terms of memory and processing speed, software in order to interact? So in summary, I would say that AI is presenting challenges that in terms of people being able to keep up with it as it's used to connect people and to allow people to be productive. The other side of AI is actually the fear that's been expressed that AI will take over people's actual work and there'll be less employment. I'm hearing less of that now, that fear is preventing people from thinking creatively about AI. But I think it's only because that concern is being swamped by what's happening with COVID. So switching to COVID has completely changed the way we work and where we work. It's really wrecked our economy here in the US. So we have a lot of people out of work. And when you have a lot of people out of work, and people having to socially distance and stay away from gathering places, we have a lot of business failure. So we have a lot of unemployment. We have a lot of people out of work. We have a lot of businesses that will never come back. So the question for HR is, are they going to be a part of the recovery of businesses, or whether businesses will be so damaged by COVID and the processes, the business processes that have been put in place for those who stay in business, is HR going to be a real player in those? And I'm going to talk a little bit about that in my presentation, how HR can stay relevant. But COVID has pretty much focused our discussions on how to stay in business and keep people on board, and then plan for the return of people to work, if it's possible. But I will talk about that a little bit more later on.
Thank you so much. And then second question is, what is the role of HR in response to new trends? It's kind of like that you said, stay in the business. It's a really important part for HR, but how HR deal with it?
I think there are several aspects to that. One is, as I'm going to say later on, it's important for HR to be a partner to business to figure out how to execute whatever the business strategies are, and therefore how to reach those goals. With these trends, HR is not able really to function in the way it has before. What's changed is that the range of things that HR could be engaged in has shrunk, has become much smaller, because there are a few very important concerns. And one is how to retain the talent of the organization. And the reason why that's so key is that when people can work anywhere, they can also work for anyone. So when there has been a lot of movement of people across the country, and some out of the country for some reasons, like what's happening politically, and it's very hard to keep track of where the workforce is, and it's very hard to gain their loyalty to their organization, because they are essentially free agents. They can go anywhere and work for anyone. So I think being able to hang on to their talent is of primary concern. And there are some strategies that are, being used now, which is, asking people, do you want to come back to work? Do you want to come back to the office? How can we entice you back to the office? And so on. And trying to make commitment to the organization a better deal for people. And to that end comes a second role that I see HR playing, and that is being concerned about employee health and well-being. Never to this extent has HR had success in talking with company leaders about employee health and well-being and what the company can do to promote their health and well-being. The reason why it's so important is that that's what people are thinking about right now. So employees who are working remotely are either responding very positively to being able to work from home, or they're responding pretty negatively about working from home. And there are reasons why, some are positive and some are negative. But regardless of how people are responding, working remotely is something that is harming people's health and well-being in obvious ways. One is they have lost a lot of autonomy in their work. And even though it sounds like, working from home, you have all the flexibility of working whatever way you want to, it really comes down to knowledge workers are glued to their computers. And they don't have the ability to hang out with their coworkers because they have to schedule it. And there are no casual interactions going on unless you schedule it. And there's no such thing as the water cooler, which is an American term for hanging out in the break room or in the cafe and talking to people who you don't normally run into or work with. So all of that is gone, and people don't have a choice but to work from home. So, and the second aspect is their safety, because COVID is running unchecked here in the United States. People are quite afraid of getting COVID. So HR has to be concerned about how they support people's mental health and psychological health, as well as their physical health, by giving people paid leaves in case they get sick. Also give them support where they have the right equipment and they have space, private space to do their work. There are a lot of things that HR needs to do in order to create a workplace within their homes so that they aren't stressed by the fact that they may not have the right equipment, they may not have reliable Wi-Fi, they may not be alone in their house, they may be trying to take care of children and schooling them. There are a lot of challenges right now because of COVID. So HR, if I can put a positive note here, is HR is the party that can make improvements, significant improvements in the situation. They can pay attention to how people are working, how people are responding to their work, how people are feeling connected or not connected, how to create more social opportunities, and therefore have a better culture within the organization, even though people are distributed widely, and who knows where they are. So many challenges, and I hope that's a useful answer for you.
Thank you for your answer. And then I have another one question. It's a little bit weird, I think. And then currently, all Japanese companies are trying to create a new performance management system similar to the US. This is due to coronavirus and the recession creating a need to better identify best performers and low performers to cut overhead costs and downsize the workplace. And many Japanese performance management systems and compensation are still based on seniority. And also labor unions are in favor of this. And job specification and job description were not clear. That's an unsolved problem. What are the pros and cons to changing JD from broad to specific like the US? Do we lose flexibility in assignments, or do we cause an equal pay within the workplace?
Excellent question. Not a strange one, an extremely challenging one. So we're talking about a new performance management system in a culture that is not used to examining performance in an American way. And I understand why employees would want to be evaluated on the basis of their merit and what they produce rather than their seniority, except for the senior people. So it's quite a challenge. So in this era of organizations where performance is being scrutinized for the purpose of making sure it has the top performers and can identify the low performers and take action to reduce the number of low performers in the organization. The opportunity to create a performance management system that works well depends on the honesty and transparency and equal opportunity that people have to be a high performer. So if the culture does not support that, for example, with unclear job descriptions and unclear performance criteria, you may be substituting favoritism and bias for seniority, or it may be another path to seniority, you know. So the question is whether one can create a performance management system that focuses on performance criteria that are general enough that with the absence of a job description, one can describe contribution to the organization in broad enough terms that merit can be objectively evaluated, or relationship formation can be evaluated objectively. So what we're striving for is that there is standardization in how people are evaluated, but the criteria are flexible enough that it can incorporate differences across jobs in terms of what the job is. It's quite a challenge, I have to say. And human beings being who they are, individuals, employees will want to be valued as highly as possible. And evaluators will be as nervous about evaluating people in Japan as they are here in the US, and not wanting to harm relationships or create conflict. We have to have a commitment from leadership that says performance management is about talking to people about what their performance expectations are, and then finding a way to communicate how people will be evaluated in an objective way. That's the secret to effective performance management, is that some communication, good communication, happens between managers and their employees, so that performance expectations are explicit and well described, and the criteria by which the employees will be evaluated is also well explained and detailed, regardless of what the job is. So if people are informed ahead of time, then when decisions are made about who's a high performer and who's a low performer, there shouldn't be surprises and therefore conflict. I hope that helps.
Thank you so much. It's really insightful and meaningful. And the last one is, it's actually weird. So
another weird one.
Give me a message to the next HR leaders in Japan.
I would give them?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's weird. My message is don't lose faith in what they're doing. It's easy to get discouraged because the challenges are so great. The job, if they want to fulfill the role that is needed today, the challenges are great and the work is great. It would be easy to lose faith that it's possible. HR people are the glue in the organization. And what I mean by that is they are the people who tie together or stick together, if I follow the glue analogy, stick together the business enterprise with the people side of the organization, with the people capability. Nobody else does that. HR does that. And everybody knows that a company is nothing if it doesn't have its people. An organization isn't the walls or the floors or the beautiful grounds. It is the people and what they do. So it's a very important job, and with this very challenging time, it becomes even more important. So don't lose faith in what you can do. Do it to the best of your ability and keep focused on the people and how you can help them reach their potential, and be vigilant about knocking out the barriers and the distractors and the disruptors that prevent people from having a positive work experience, which results in their health, their well-being, and their ability to do their best work. So hopefully some of the things I say in my presentation will help give them ideas for how they can do that.